Oh, yeah, sorry, I'm MazinoAppeal. I'm sorry, and good
Hello,
morning to you.
Mazino.
Yes, sorry, Earth to Mazino.
All right.
Welcome inside Freshly Pressed. Who do we have with us today?
So we have Adenike Oyetunde. Morning, Adenike.
Morning,
Good
Adenike.
The
morning.
miracle
Delightful.
child. We have a testimony this morning. And then we
Come
have
with it.
Ugo Dre. Morning, Ugo.
Hey, morning.
Good to have you on the show.
You
And of
too.
course, we have Funmi Odude, barrister Funmi Odude.
Hey, good morning, Ayo.
You can find Funmi Odude at Funmi Odude on Twitter, Ugo Dre at Ugo Dre on Twitter, Adenike Oyetunde at Adenike Oyetunde on Twitter. The easiest crew when it comes to Twitter handles on Freshly Pressed. All right, let's go straight into our first story. But before then, this is how you can react or send us your comments to these to the stories for today. You can send a WhatsApp message to 0809 444 You can tweet at us at smooth981fm. Use the hashtag freshlypressed981. Or if you choose, watch us live on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel, smooth981fm Lagos. Right, our first story is on Lassa Fever. And this is important, Adenike, because we have been talking about coronavirus, which is affecting Asia, larger parts of Asia, and some countries in the West, in Europe and America. But in Nigeria, Lagos Nigeria in particular, we talk about Lassa fever that is a bigger threat to us, and it seems as if we're not paying enough attention to it. Now we have the first confirmed case in Lagos, and we hear from this headline in the Punch newspaper that Lagos has placed 63 under surveillance. Please, can you take us to this story?
Okay, so the health commissioner, Professor Akin Abayomi, was the one who disclosed this at a press briefing, but he was very insistent, in saying that he did not want the public to panic because the said gentleman was on route to law school, Lagos Law School, well, Law School Lagos campus actually, and he was attended to at the clinic, complaining about malaria, and they treated him, and then he wasn't getting any better, and then they referred him to the Nigeria Air Force Clinic in Onikom, where he was also managed, but was later referred to Luth when there was no improvement. So his test confirmed that it was positive for Lassa fever on the 17th of February, just a few days ago. And immediately he was transferred to the isolation containment facility in Luth. Now, the thing with Lassa fever is very often, the moment people who come in contact, the best thing to do is to isolate them or just observe them. So the story is that 63 people, 63 identified persons may have had contact with him since he came into Lagos from Ebonyi State. So it's interesting to me because the center, what's it called, NCDC, Nigeria Center for Disease Control, has said that the Lassa fever has spread to about 26 states in the federation, and a number of new confirmed cases increased from 109 last week to 115. And it's necessary for us to mention very quickly Ondo, Edo, Ebonyi, Kano, Kogi, Kaduna, Taraba, Plateau, Bauchi, Enugu, Abia, Benue, Gombe, Sokoto, and Katsina states. And the Edo State accounts for 33% of the death toll. I beg your pardon, of the 73% of all confirmed cases. Edo State has 33, Ondo State has 32, and Ebonyi State has 6. So the question is really, in these states, what are they doing about it? Why is it spreading? Why does it feel like this thing is in certain cases? Because you know that Lassa fever is hemorrhagic fever and it's spread by virus. And that's why they always say cover your food exactly, rats and fluid and all of that stuff. So we know how Lagos is with rats. You see some rats and you wonder, is this a cat or is this a dog? And it's almost the rain's about to come again. So the gutters, we know
it's gonna flush them in.
exactly. So the rats are going to start coming out. So every single person has, if you can, make sure that thing they do
Fumigation.
exactly, and make sure that you clean the gutters around you. Don't wait for the Lagos state government to come and clean it. It's necessary for us to talk about this because if Lassa fever is in Lagos state and is spreading across all the states, we don't know how long and how far precautions are going to take.
What worries here is, first off, they already noted that where these people who are being quarantined were from. So that means there must be some sort of investigation and also record keeping. That's good because I was going to. However, even in states where the Lassa fever hasn't reached, is there enough awareness? No. What is the instrument that's being used as a means of educating or making people aware of what to do in case of, or what to do to prevent it? Because I don't hear much.
Yes, the question goes back to the national orientation. Agency of Nigeria. And there's a presupposition that because it is not in Lagos, maybe that's why we're not hearing. But the reality about it is, in terms of advocacy for something of this nature, it really doesn't have to get to those places before you intensify advocacy. So on those states, first thing that came to my mind was, oh, you know what, call my auntie. There has to be something that they're doing in those states that's making. So maybe it's bush rats. You know, they eat sweets a whole lot.
Thank you very much. And we have to commend, give kudos where it's due to the Lagos state government swift response, as it was with Ebola. And we had said in the past that when it comes to responding to things like this, outbreaks like this, they're quite efficient. There's an efficient system in place. But again, like we mentioned, we want to see, this is something that should be eradicated. At least you should see reduced incidences. Well, thanks a lot. Well, I'll come to you for this next one. Nigeria's electricity problem. Discos must sit up or leave. Now, the minister, the Minister of Power, that is, Salim Maman, has come out. This is not the first time. During when Babatunde Fashola was Minister of Power, he had made similar statements with regards to the discos being one of the biggest problems when it comes to the distribution of power in Nigeria. Ugo, please take us through this story and this ultimatum, as it were, that the minister has given the discos.
I just wonder why I always have to do this story.
I'm always happy when at least you're here, so you do justice.
Well, I'm trying to be balanced here. I mean, under my affiliation with the power self, but it appears that anytime you have a new minister, of power in place, this is usually the tone that you get. This time around, he's claiming that we have in Nigeria 13,000 megawatts installed capacity, and then the transmission, company of Nigeria can wheel 7,000. That's just slightly over half of it, and then while this coast can take only 3,000, less than half of that amount. So, and then he now says that the discos are the problem. So if transmission can only take just about half of the 13,000, how is it just one end of the value chain? That's the challenge. So the bottom line here is that we've got a serious problem in the power sector, and that's funding. So if you, for example, go and build a power plant, say somewhere in Kano State, and you build it somewhere in maybe in the bush or somewhere in some distant area, you would need to have gas supply at some point, or feedstock through to your power plant, and then you now need to build a transmission substation there, and they now have the distribution companies build their own distribution substations as well. So it's not it's one thing for you to want to invest in generation, but you also have to carry the other value chain along, basically, so that the power can eventually get to the consumer. So but what has happened over the years is you've seen generators being built across the country, but not in areas where the transmission company can actually wheel that power out, and then distribution company can also take in some of that power.
So it would seem like all the infrastructure is actually working against the private discos that are supposed to transmit.
Exactly, to an extent. And then you also have a lot of capacity limitations. So if you have industrial areas, for example, where you want to actually wheel power to, but you don't have enough, either you don't have enough transmission capacity to actually push power to that side, and then where you actually have the transmission capacity, you don't have a lot of customers out there that you can wheel power. So there's a lot of problems with the sector. And I think that the more develop all the blame games, and discos blaming Gencos blaming discos, the transmission blaming. I mean, you just have to stop this thing, and everybody just like sit down and say, look, the problem here is funding. The sector needs serious funding, billions and billions of dollars. And it's one thing for you to say you want to increase tariff, like it's planned to happen anytime soon. But if you're increasing tariff as well, you got to rest assured that, look, that alone is not a silver bullet, right? So there will be stages to ensuring that Nigerians get the kind of power supply that they need. Be that as it may, discos also have their own challenges, and I think rightly said, a lot of discos can't remit, which means that they can't collect money and then pay to embed, and they can do that also because you have a lot of customers who are on estimated billing. So regardless of what you bill them, they're not going to pay you because they don't have a meter. And discos are saying, well, we can't get meters as well because we just last year, when they started asset provider scheme, the Nigerian ports, Nigerian custom right? That's what they make customs here.
Yeah.
So they increase tariffs
Mm.
for, right? That's what they make customs here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So they increase tariffs
Mm.
for, importation of meters. So now it costs 40% more to import meters, whereas a lot of these meters environment for them to also invest,
Yes.
right, for and deliver the kind of power that that
So who is
Nigerians
going
need.
to give us power? Let me just ask
No.
you. That's what
Yeah. So at the
Nigeria
end of the
wants to
day,
know.
right, for any developed country in the world, power would always come from the grid. Majority of your power would always be from the grid. You can't have power fragmented.
Yeah.
Excuse me. It has to come from the grid. So, and that requires significant investment, private sector investment for that matter. But for that to happen, you have to have a commercially viable environment. Without that, it's not going to work.
We have a message here from Ihang from Ojo on the first story. Our health structure is very weak, coupled with identity management. The government should provide cure for the Lassa epidemic and ensure drastic awareness campaign for the public. Lorenzo here. Edo State has a treatment center that accounts for the number of cases. Irua is where it might be. Many facilities refer their cases there.
That's good to hear. Emeka from Amuwo says, still being rationed in my place of residence. Explanation being inadequate facilities. Totally agree with the Prime Minister.
And this is us. The Nigeria power comes from up high.
All right, thank you very much. I was talking about data, and I think someone mentioned about data. The World Bank is set to inject or has injected $2.1 billion in Nigeria's ID Health Road Agri project, according to the New Telegraph. Yesterday, they approved a total of the sum for Nigeria's digital identity ecosystem project, along with 5 others. Now, I don't know if this is linked to Anthony Joshua saying that he had to bring that in.
Oh, I saw the tweet.
NIN, registering for his national identification number. But we've seen the World Bank is investing a lot of money into this to ensure that in a few years, in a number of years, even the most remote of places would have their, will be able to capture the identity of people there. Can you please take us through this story and how we are to keep them accountable so that the projects, the amount of money given to a particular project is what will be expended?
Okay, so I think it's important to start the story by saying that most of the funds are from the IDA loans, and the World Bank IDA, that's the International Development Association, was established in 1960 to help the poor country by providing grants and low to zero interest loans. So as you've mentioned, there are 6 projects covered under this particular scheme for the fiscal year 2020. The first is the Nigerian Digital Identification for Development project, which is to assist National Identity Management Commission to increase the number of people that have the National Identity Card, which would enable the marginalized group to access welfare enhancing services. The question is, does ASMIN really does it relate to welfare? But who knows?
Supposed to.
Well, who knows? We used to have this social programs, and the national identity number is a very valid way of ensuring accountability and avoiding ghost beneficiaries in all those programs. Other projects are the Immunization plus Malaria Progress for Accelerating Coverage and Transforming Services project, which is supposed to help primary health care with immunization, malaria control, child and maternal health in some selected states. The third is the Nigerian Rural Access and Agricultural Marketing Project, which is supposed to improve rural roads, improve connectivity and access to local markets. That particular project is going to be funded through the IDA credit, as well as co-financing from the French Development Agency and part support from the government of Nigeria. Then the Ogun State has its own special projects in the funds, the Ogun State Economic Transformation Project, which is supposed to increase private investments in the state. Then the Innovation, Development and Effectiveness in Acquisition of Skills Project, which is supposed to is skill acquisition for about 50,000 Nigerian students. And the last is the Sustainable Procurement, Environmental and Social Standards Enhancement Project, which is supposed to strengthen capacity in managing procurement, environmental and social standards in public and private sectors. So yes, this is good news. Like you said, the key is accountability, making sure that when the sums come, they're actually used for the projects that they have been earmarked for. And I mean, it's the kind of integrity we show with respect to projects that help get more for subsequent fiscal years. So it's holding the government accountable to make sure that these sums are really, really spent on what they are earmarked for.
Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing an improvement in the process of obtaining your NIN. Mazino, have you gotten your NIN?
Okay.
Ayo from the island says power supply is still terrible. We barely get 5 hours of power daily now, despite load shedding of 3 days on and a day off.
All right, Adenike, I'm coming to you with the next story from the Premium Times newspaper. And hold the presses, everybody. This is because the reps have their press. Or sort of. Reps unveil magazine to tackle fake news. The House of Representatives, they've launched their maiden edition for the Green Chamber magazine. This is what they're calling it. The House Speaker, Femi Gbajabiamila, said the House decided to publish its own magazine to promote true and noble journalism, which would not massage the egos of the lawmakers. He also said that the publication would throw open the inner workings of the National Assembly while holding the powers that be to account. Adenike, what do you think about the fairness of whatever would be published?
What a question to start.
Going into blogging.
Exactly. So it's on normal circumstances, you would there would be a presupposition that this would at least, bridge the gap where we really do not know what is happening with what is going on in the National Assembly and with the legislators. But then you ask yourself that where things work, we really shouldn't have a magazine to tell us what they're doing. We should have, it's now an online platform that says that my representative has just done so and so and so at the end of today or this week's plenary sessions. These are the things that happen. But seeing that they want to control the narrative that comes out from there, this is probably one of the reasons why they did this.
Did you say control the narratives?
Yes.
Manage.
Let's go back to you saying control the narrative. What exactly did you mean by control? Because you're not the only one thinking so.
Buhari was represented live, and he said the magazine will combat the scourge of fake news as it affects the House. They say, though, it's been long overdue, better late than never. And Buhari said the magazine will help change the public perception about the lawmakers. And I'm quoting, he says, this wrong perception has resulted partly from the lack of understanding of the enormous work of lawmakers, especially outside the glare of television cameras. The public will be better informed on the activities of the House, and this will in turn reflect in an improved public perception. It will go a long way in bridging the gap between the House and the public, and it will promote activities of the House, including bills and motion passage and committee assignments, which is mostly reported in the newspapers, electronic and new media. So this, when I said control the other time, you're asking me what I mean. But, the question really is, who are the people that will be employed to man the affairs of this magazine?
Who will they report to?
Who are they reporting to? Who is going to pay their salaries? When we know all of this, we can then, suspect. Can imagine what measure of independence or fairness we will get. But because we do not know all of this, and it just feels like yet another thing to say, we launched the magazine. We do not need a green magazine to tell us what the National Assembly
We need
is
tangible.
Maybe we need
results.
reality TV.
Yeah, that's really a good
You don't
one.
think so?
In case you didn't hear that, Ugo is saying that perhaps we need reality TV.
For National Assembly.
And who employs them? Who pays them? How do we determine the independence? If we can't get all of these things, then we're just going back to the same another newspaper again. And this time we know that every time we pick up a copy, it's just going to be lofty things. So today they did this, tomorrow it doesn't make any sense, Mr. Lai Mohammed. And I'm sorry to bust your bubble. This is just rubbish.
Ooh.
All right, thank you very much, Adenike. Let's move very quickly. This day newspaper, Senate asks GSM operators to refund drop call money to customers. Please give us the details of this story, Ugo.
That was Adenike, by the way.
Honestly, when I read this headline, I was excited. I hope the details will do justice, because in terms of the fact that they've sued at the hands of drop calls, it's almost as if we've gone back about 10 years or so in what obtains today with our GSM operators. But please take us through the story.
Please, we have a lot of problems in Nigeria. I don't think drop calls is in 99 problems. Drop calls in one.
Listen, I was gonna ask.
Yeah,
you,
and
I'm enjoying the network. So
and you
far.
know
Drop
what?
calls are-
Sometimes I think we tend to forget where we were coming from, right? Like this in 20 years ago, 25 years ago, where we were coming from. So, and drop calls calls is not synonymous with Nigeria alone. If you just go online and do a lot of research, you have problems of drop calls all around the world, and drop calls as well. Of course, most of it is usually from the network providers, but you also have drop calls because of the kind of cell phone you use. Sometimes the where you're located as well. So is this something the National Assembly wants to be talking about? And we talk about this almost every year. If you go back to the first the National Assembly, we're talking about drop calls. Every year they just come and just say, look, this drop call things is look at the narrative this time around. The drop call shortage, the drop call chain cost consumers. To me, it's a very serious issue, and we have been with it since as far as I can remember. In fact, one guy says, what happens in Nigeria, especially as far as this attitude and behavior of the service providers, hardly happens anywhere in the world. What MTN does to Nigeria, MTN doesn't do that to South Africa. Like,
all right,
on top drop calls.
So Ugo is not with me on this one. I'm with you, Senate President. Charge them, let them refund our money.
Right.
Well, let's move on. Ian on WhatsApp says they can as well open their own radio station and TV station.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
It's clear that those House of Reps folks,
Let us know when
don't
you are
have
recruiting.
anything doing in the form of KPIs. Nigerians are suffering.
I've said it, reality TV.
And this is Sharon says the enormous work of the House is on break for half. Huh? Yeah, the enormous work of the House is on break for half of the year. Yeah, very enormous, says Sharon. Sarcasm. Let's move on now to our next story. Now, this one is a very poignant note here on a very poignant note from the Punch newspaper. Can Knox Buhari as Leah Shaibu spends 2 years with Boko Haram. I think yesterday marked 2 years of her absence, and the Christian Association of Nigeria has expressed uncertainty about whether the federal government is working towards it. Basically, if it's even still concerned about her whereabouts or even what they're doing to try bring her back. I think this is whose story is this now? Yes, it is your story for me. Please take us through the story. What do you think about this?
Yeah, so this is like you mentioned, a very sobering story. It's been 2 years since the Chibok girls kidnapped, and out of the 110 pupils that we got, the hers was the Dapchi Yobe State kidnap, and she's the only one that has not yet been freed, despite several promises by President Buhari. I know he mentions it once in a while during news press conference that they're doing everything that they can, but it can never be enough until there's very active step. And the second part of the story is Khan complaining about the re-radicalization of the Boko Haram suspects, the amnesty program that is going on, and saying, well, it sort of feels like they are empowering the arrested terrorists, and what's the guarantee that they won't go back to picking arms? These are very key points that have been raised, but then we also have to consider, as much as we do want our girls back, we also have to realize that some of the active members are sometimes themselves victims, and victims of society, the society in which they've been brought up, victim of the radicalization of their faith. And so if the amnesty program can work to radicalize them, then maybe we shouldn't throw it under the bus. What I think Nigerians want is more information about it. It would be much more comforting if it was a more transparent process, so that it doesn't look like, I know that because it's security related, we can't have all the fine details of the list of names and all, but at least the policy that guides it, what do they consider before they decide, okay, this is a person to prosecute, or this is a person that is fit for the amnesty program. And so I think it's more information, as much as they can give, subject to the overriding security interest in it. As much more information as they can give will be a lot better. And it's the same with the amount of effort they're putting into. Everybody knows that we negotiate with the terrorists.
We did that with the Niger Delta, didn't we?
Yes, we negotiate. So as much, I think it's the skeletal nature of the information that comes out that gives rise to a lot of distrust.
Now, you say information. Earlier in the week, we talked about the sacking of the service chiefs, and here Khan raising concerns about the challenges we're facing with security. Now, regarding the sacking of the chiefs, could it be that perhaps maybe it's just that nothing is being seen to be done? Nothing.
Exactly.
No one seems
no
to
reprimand.
be. Reprimand.
Nobody is calling them to order. Nobody. So it doesn't look. It looks like you're paying lip service to it. It looks like every time you're asked about it, you say the right words. We're doing all that we can, but in terms of actual action, we're not seeing your posture doesn't portray that this is very as important to you as it is to us.
All right, thank you very much. We move on to the next story. FGN bond, that's federal government of Nigeria bond auction for February oversubscribed by 284.4%. DMO reports from the Daily Times.
Ugo Dre, we'll go straight to you for this one. There's plenty of technical jargon in it, and I think you're the man to help us de-jargonize.
Yes, and that's exactly what I would do. So not too much story. Basically, this is just saying that a lot of Nigerians have free cash and they are willing to put money in FGN bonds at 12% for, I think, 10 years. Is that what I saw? Yeah, about that. 12.15% for 30-year bonds. So that's essentially because there's really nowhere, you can put money these days. So pension funds are scrambling for yield. So wherever you see yields that are above 10%, you go for it. But the bottom line is that for those that are buying 5-year bonds, you're investing in bonds at less than inflation rate. So you're going to be getting 8% or thereabout, whereas inflation rate is 12% today. So that's negative investments. That's where investments are going these days. Except you want to do that. What was that Roots was talking about?
The investments are on where it is. We got messages in the studio here.
Thank you very much. Sean says a lot of Nigerians have free cash. Who are these Nigerians? Where are they? And then Opeyemi Praise says National Assembly just wants to squeeze telcos. As per NAS reality show, have a title, Abuja House of Commotion.
Or Behind the Chambers.
I knew
I like that.
Thank you very much. I'm here till the end of the week.
Final story here for today.
And the final story is illegal migrations. We may impose tough visa rules on Nigeria. The EU warns Nigeria. This is coming after the US has placed certain ban on Nigerian immigration. Now the EU is also telling that more than 10% of the people who are residing in the EU illegally are actually from Nigeria. Now, Funmi, this is worrying because
it's such a damper to the nice review we got this week.
Exactly,
Wow.
and that went viral itself. But to have this, what do you think?
Okay, so the part of the story that gets me is the fact that the reason for the alleged ban or likely to be banned is a response to readmitting immigrants that have legally overstayed. And I'm like, why is that a problem? Why is it a problem that why does the EU have a problem with us readmitting by illegal immigrants?
It's actually a non-story for me because I kind of think that it quoted that the person from the EU out of context. That it was a very generalized statement. She didn't mention Nigeria specifically. She just said, look, that's the EU policy. If you don't comply with your rules, then they can just make these applications tighter for countries, not necessarily Nigeria. So that's just a very, very
nice way to
Security. So please don't panic.
Nope.
Read the story, not the headlines.
Don't panic. Quickly, by way of mention, the director that passed, the assistant director that passed at the presidential villa, she was in charge of administrative matters and she lost her life because they claim that assailants breached her residence. I think it's very necessary for us to just at least mention and hope that she continues to rest well. Now, of particular concern to me is the fact that they picked up someone already. We know how we always hear story, even when we don't know who the person is, someone always ends up getting picked. But the reality is, even in your gated communities, you are really not that safe. So we need to look at these reasons why we're not safe, all of us.
Thank you very much, Adenike. Adenike is Adenike Oyetunde on Twitter. Ugo Dre is at Ugo Dre on Twitter, and Funmi Odude at Funmi Odude on Twitter. A big thanks to you for your comments. Don't forget at 9 o'clock during Lagos Talks 901, we have more time to delve into the headline for today. Good morning.
Good morning, Lagos. Stay tuned.
Let me guess, you guys will pick National Assembly magazine.
Oh, we overran the time. I'm so